everyone, my name is Abrefi Victoria, and on behalf of our group, welcome to our presentation. Here is a question worth sitting with. If critical thinking is so important to development, why do people, even the highly educated ones, find it difficult to think critically? We encounter this paradox every day. Graduates who cannot question why they read, professionals who make mistakes based on emotions rather than evidence, leaders who mistake confidence for competence. Today, our group will walk you through the causes of this paradox and what can be done about it.
Thank you, Victoria. I am Justice Appiah. Critical thinking is the ability to analyze information, evaluate arguments, identify assumptions, and reach reasoned conclusions based on evidence, not emotions or personal bias. It underpins scientific discovery, innovations, democratic participations, and effective leadership. Some scholars, like John Dewey, described it as a foundation for responsible action. And also, Richard Paul and Linda Elder also described it as essential for ethical citizenship. In short, critical thinking is not just an academic skill, it's a life skill, and its absence has a real consequences.
My name is Josimbe Diako, and I'll speak on why critical thinking matters for development. Nations that encourage question and evidence-based reasoning are better positioned to solve economic, technological, and environmental challenges. In workplaces, critical thinking improves innovations and problem solving. Organizations that reward analytical thinking are more competitive and resilient. In democracies, citizens who think critically are less vulnerable to propaganda and manipulation. Philosopher Harvey Segal argues that critical thinking is more merely an academic skill. It is moral and civic obligation. For developing nations especially, building a population of critical thinkers is fundamental to achieving sustainable growth and strong institutions.
I am Ajekum Christabel Ejiwa. I will explain the cognitive barriers that make critical thinking difficult. Daniel Kahneman, in his book Thinking, Fast and Slow, explained that the brain operates in two modes. System 1 is fast, intuitive and emotional. System 2 is slow, deliberate and analytical. Most of us rely on System 1 because it's easier and faster, but it produces predictable errors. Confirmation bias leads us to seek information that confirms what we already believe. Availability bias causes us to overrate vivid or recent example. These tendencies operate below conscious awareness, making them very hard to correct through willpower alone.
I respond to the name Doris Ayidemi Sameko. Another major barrier is the Dunning-Kruger effect. Research shows that people with limited knowledge in a subject tend to overestimate their competence, while true experts are more of what they do not know. This creates a troubling dynamic. Those who most need to develop critical thinking are often the least aware of the need. Emotional reasoning compounds this. When a belief is tied to personal identity or cultural heritage, any challenge to it feels like a personal attack, triggering defense, not reflection. More information does not always lead to better thinking. Sometimes it just gives people more ammunition to defend what they already believe.
I am Kuma Helena Opokoecha. I will speak on how our educational systems contribute to the problem. Many educational systems reward recall rather than analysis. Students are trained to memorize content, reproduce correct answers, and defer to authority rather than question it. This produces graduates who have knowledge but lack the tools to critically evaluate it. Matthew Lipman argues that thinking skills must be explicitly taught. They do not develop automatically through exposure to academic content. Without deliberate instruction in reasoning, students graduate with information but without the wisdom to use it well. Education as it currently stands in many systems produces informed minds, not necessarily critical
My name
ones.
is Paul Solomon Otieno, and I will address the social and cultural barriers to critical thinking. In many cultural contexts, challenging authority or questioning consensus is seen as disrespectful. Having journeys describe this as groupthink, where the desire for social harmony overrides honest thinking. People who dissent risk exclusion or ridicule. The digital environment makes this worse. Social media algorithms create echo chambers, feeding us content that confirms our existing views and limiting our exposure to alternative perspectives. The result is a generation that consumes vast amounts of information but is poorly equipped to evaluate it. In general, we are informationally overwhelmed but analytically underdeveloped.
I'm Nyako Angelina. A university degree represents academic achievement, but it does not automatically produce rigorous thinking. Credentialism, the tendency to equate qualifications with wisdom, generates confidence without the accompanying habit of self-correction. Robert Ennis argues that critical thinking involves not just cognitive skills, but also deposits open-mindedness, intellectual courage, sensitivity to evidence. These are not developed through subject matters introductions alone. A medical student can learn diagnostic protocols without ever questioning the research behind them. A law student can learn to argue without examining assumptions embedded in the law. Knowledge without reflection is not enough.
Hello everyone, I go by the name Josephine Opon, and I will speak on how we could address these barriers. First, curriculum must explicitly integrate logic, media literacy, and argumentation as core subjects, not optional electives. Inquiry-based learning and structured debates should replace rote memorization as the dominant mode of instruction. Second, instruction must evolve. When exams only reward correct answers only, students learn to prioritize outcomes over reasoning. Assessments should require students to justify their thinking, identify counter-arguments, and reverse their positions in response to evidence. Carol Dweck's research on growth mindsets shows that people who believe abilities can be developed are more willing to confront their reasoning errors. And I repeat, Carol Dweck's research on growth mindsets shows that people who believe abilities can be developed in more willing to confront their reasoning errors. That belief itself must be cultivated in schools, in families, and in organizations.
Good day, everyone. I'm Edu Jenfi Ekwiaduma, and I'll close our presentation. Critical thinking is difficult because it challenges deeply ingrained habits of mind and social conditioning accumulated over a time. Education provides knowledge, but it does not automatically remove bias, emotional attachment, or overconfidence. The paradox of educated people are failing to think critically is not contradiction. It is a predictable outcome of systems that have historically prioritized content delivery over reasoning and conformity over inquiry. Sustainable development, democratic governance, and effective institutions all depend on individuals who can question assumptions and remain genuinely willing to revise their beliefs. Critical thinking is not a natural gift, it is discipline, and it must be deliberately taught, consciously practiced, and continuously sustained. Thank you.
Practice it at the very time. Education provides